first I just want to do a quick mic check in the back. Can folks hear me? We've had to add all these chairs, so we got a thumbs up. Thank you so much. So, first of all, I want to make sure everyone knows the agenda for the evening. Hopefully when you walked in, you got a beautiful State of Ward 12 booklet. Can someone hold it up and wave it? Yes. This is almost going to be like our presentation that we're working through tonight. And so as I speak, you'll find some instructive maps and charts and information in this that I'm excited for you to follow along on. This booklet itself has been a labor of love, as has this evening. My heart is so full looking around this room of so many residents who either I've spoken with, or I've gotten to meet you, or this is your first time coming. I truly believe it is a radical act to come out to a community meeting when storms are coming in, there's a Guardians game on, and you all showed up here tonight, so I want to make sure to make it worth your while. So what we're doing tonight, I'm gonna talk to you. This is a little bit unusual for me. I really like a sort of interactive dialogue, but there's so much I want to tell you about, and this is really the overarching plan and vision for what we're doing in the ward. And I'm going to talk at you for a little bit, okay? It's going to be maybe about 20-25 minutes, and then we're going to move to a Q&A session, and then we're going to wrap up for the night. We have these wonderful resource tables, all sorts of important community resources, and so on your way out, I hope you get a chance to stop by if you haven't already. But does that agenda sound good for everybody for this evening? All right, then let's get into it. So the idea for this meeting started about 6 months ago. I was in front of a group of CMSD students telling them a bit about my job after they'd finished a unit on civics. And I quizzed them on the basic idea of the lesson, which is what are the 3 branches of government? And a whole chorus of students responded, legislative, executive, judicial. And we talked about what that looks like, you know, at the federal level, the Congress, the President, the Supreme Court. And then we talked about how we had the same system, but just on a mini level here in Cleveland, with the mayor, our city council, and our municipal courts. But there's one girl in the back, she raised her hand, and I called on her, and she asked me, I don't get it. You're on city council, but what do you actually do every day? And I love that question, because here in Cleveland, we haven't always done a good job of answering it. We have these immense, complex challenges before us in one of the poorest cities in America. Pick your topic, from safety to lead poisoning to our deteriorating housing stock, to even potholes. And Cleveland City Council is not just some legislative branch locked away in some dark corner of City Hall, passing laws and hoping things get better. We are the eyes and the ears of the city in our wards. We meet with residents after gunshots ring out on their block. We bring neighbors together for meetings. We mediate disputes and advocate for development dollars in our ward. We try to make things better in the face of the daily challenges of this city. And so my goal tonight is to explain to you what that work looks like, tell you what I prioritize, how I believe change can come to our ward and our city. And much like that high school student, I want to show you what comes of the work I do every day. From the small activities like answering the phone to speak with many of you, or the large work of planning for our ward's future. And most of all, I want you to leave with the sense that Cleveland's future is very much in our hands, and that there is a lot of work happening, sometimes visible and sometimes not, to bring a brighter future for all of us. But before I dive into that, I want to take a moment just to talk about the structure of this state of the ward and why I did it the way I did, which is 2 separate nights, one on the west side, one on the east side. As you know, the neighborhoods in my ward can feel very different, okay? We're here in Old Brooklyn. I know we have residents from Brooklyn Center, Tremont, even some Slavic Village people. And all these neighborhoods can feel very different, and they all have sort of different conditions today, but they all have the same origins. They are all, they started as part of the steel mill, as worker homes for people, and then over the years they diverted, but their diversity today is really their strength. It tells the current story of Cleveland, the challenges that we might have in Slavic Village, the strengths that we might have in Brooklyn Center. Combined, they tell the story of Cleveland today. And I truly believe that if we can figure out Ward 12, we can figure out Cleveland. And if we can't figure out Ward 12, we can't figure out Cleveland. Because of that, I truly believe this is the most important ward in the city. We have eyes and ears across the Cuyahoga River, which no other council person can say. Tonight, but because of that, tonight you might hear about neighborhoods other than your own. But that work is all part of the same strategy. My goal is that you come away with a cohesive vision of what I'm working on for everybody and how I want our whole ward to thrive. With that goal in mind, let's get into it. If you open your booklets, you'll see that broadly speaking, everything I do at City Hall can be split into two categories, okay? Better city services and creating stronger neighborhoods. Better city services looks like city workers delivering garbage bins, getting roads repaved, and mowing vacant lots. Stronger neighborhoods means creating safe, thriving streets where residents like us want to live and work. And of course, those two goals feed back on each other. If we can keep our streets clean or get building and housing to address blighted houses quickly, we can increase our sense of safety in our neighborhoods. If we have stronger neighborhoods and more residents like you want to live here, the city will have more resources to deliver those basic city services that we need. And basic city services is where I want to start. Here in Ward 12, we know city services. I know them. Oh, it's pointing down and it's messing me up.
It just keeps pointing down and pointing down, so I'll give you one.
Well, look at that. This is Dennis Althar. He is a Ward 12 resident and runs the speaker company that actually has all these speakers. So he's our tech guy for the day. That actually sounds better up here too. So I'm appreciating that. So here's what I want to say. In Ward 12, we know city services. We know them inside and out, and my staff who are in the back, I can see them there, they're going to wave their hands. They know them as well, because we have been providing them to you since the day we got into office. So far, my 3-person office has personally responded to 3,429 calls for service, which is higher than the number in that book because the calls keep rolling in. Some things are easy, like missed garbage pickup. Others have taken months and years to resolve. I'll never forget our first major snowstorm as we were inundated with calls about how people could know when the plow trucks were coming through. We were getting one version of things from the mayor's office, but I think we'll all remember that the reality on the ground was a little bit different. I made it over to the Ridge Road transfer station in my 4-wheel drive hatchback at 10 p.m. With a case of Red Bulls and pretzel packets for the snowplow drivers, and during the shift change I got to talk to people about what was actually happening on the ground. I learned more in that 1 hour than I did in the whole week leading up to our first big snowstorm. In fact, I've done ride-alongs with anybody who'll take me, from police to urban forestry to asphalt inspectors. I was the first councilman to do a ride-along with EMS in decades, and each one has helped me learn the city. And I need that knowledge because the constituent calls we get are fundamentally very human. I've been on the phone when residents cried in frustration because the city has taken months to pick up a decaying mattress on the back porch of the vacant house next to them, and it's attracting vermin and pests. I've heard the fear in your voice as you talk about reckless drivers, running stop signs, and how you worry about your kids. I really did not get into this business to not have solutions for people, so every call, whether we can fix it or not, sticks with me. And there's simply no substitute for getting to know the city from the ground up. We hear from every corner and every neighborhood in this ward. But we also take the time to pay attention to the types of calls we're getting because they are symptoms of larger issues. When we analyzed a sample of our call data, over half the calls were for basic city services that could be handled by their respective departments if they were responsive and providing good customer service for our residents. However, if you know anything about the city of Cleveland, you know that is a big if. Too many of our departments have atrophied over the years. I truly believe that the frontline workers of this city want to deliver high-quality city services, but they have not had the tools or support to do so for years, and we've all seen the results of that. Our best effort to fix this system from top to bottom is coming soon. It's going to be the relaunch of the city's 311 system, which should go live later this year. 311 is going to be the central place for city services. You can test it now, you can dial it from any phone number in Cleveland, but I really want you to test it once the web and app options have opened this summer, in addition to the phone, because that will be when the relaunch is live and we have the new technology, the new staff, and the new communications plan. But in the end, you can buy all the technology in the world, but if you don't get the work done, then it's not working. So I want to make sure that 311 really works for everybody. And I learned that lesson the hard way very early on. I'm going to take a divergence into garbage bins, okay? This is like the least interesting topic you would think, except I am convinced that this is the ultimate parable for how the city of Cleveland works. I've been hearing about garbage bins for years. Long before I ran for council, I would go to my own block club, my own community meetings, and I'd hear people talk about how hard it was to get a garbage bin. But I didn't think too much of it until I launched my campaign, and I started knocking doors. And at the end of my very first week, I knocked a door, and a woman said, I don't care who you are, but you come to my garage, you look at my garbage bin, and it was literally duct taped together with twine around it, and she said, if you get elected, please just get me a new garbage bin. I thought just something bizarre had happened. Oh, they forgot. But no, house after house after house, people would take me around back to their garages and open up their garages so that I could see these bins. And once I got to City Hall, I realized there were multiple problems happening, but really there were two big ones. The first one is money. We just were not spending money to purchase these garbage bins. We would let a backlog back up for months at a time, and then we would put in an order for a certain number of bins. But by the time COVID happened, we had supply chain issues, and the supply chain would just take months, and we would end up with these years-long backlogs. The other problem, though, is systems. There was no system to deliver these bins. As far as I can tell, in 2021 and 2022, the honest-to-God best way to get a garbage bin in the city of Cleveland was to call your council person, and your council person called the director of public works for the entire city of Cleveland, and he told a supervisor, who told another guy, to put a bin on his truck and get it out to that house. There was essentially no network in place to make this work. And so we started to tackle it. It took a long time, but we got to the point where today, when I came into office, it was over 100 days on average to get a new garbage bin. And that was just in the city work orders that they were actually logging into the system. I don't really trust that early data, but what was in there shows that it was long backlogs. Today, we not only have a real purchase system in place so that we constantly have a supply of these bins on hand, but we have dedicated crews with trucks that drive them out, and it's their only job is to get the bins out. And that means that our delivery time has gone down from over 100 days to now under 10 days. So yes, if you need a garbage bin, now is actually a very good time to request one. Just want to make sure you know. But you know, the garbage bins is just one example, because it took that focus, this attention and money to fix this one issue. But garbage bins is just this one little narrow slice of the city, and we have so many other services that are happening. And one of my jobs in this State of the Ward is to be direct and honest with you guys about what I think is working and what I think isn't working. And we're going to talk now about a couple of topics that I do not think are working. And they are going to take that same focus and attention and money that garbage bins took, but on a much larger scale. So let's get into it. Trees. Trees are good. I like trees. We should all like trees. But the City of Cleveland's tree canopy that the city manages is not being well maintained. They have not had the resources, they have not had the time, and we recently learned that the backlog for critical pruning, stump removal, the basic things to keep a tree canopy healthy, we have $2.9 million in backlogged requests, and that's just the ones we know about. There is no inventory, working inventory of our tree system, and so it has gotten, the way of managing our trees has sort of spiraled out of control. And as recently as this week, I was talking with my colleagues about how we fix this, right? Urban forestry, again, incredible frontline workers who want to do right by the city's trees, but do not have the resources to do so. And so how do we fix that problem? I've been working to try to get the urban forestry budget pulled out of the other department that it's currently mixed with. But we're also going to have solutions in the meantime. I'm really proud that the Ward 12 office, we have one of the few wards to pilot something called porous flexible pavement. At this job, you get very excited about nerdy topics, but it is a type of sidewalk, a type of material for sidewalk that allows tree roots to grow underneath the sidewalk without the sidewalk cracking. So we don't have to keep removing these trees that are cracking sidewalks, or worse, having you, the homeowner, pay to repair your sidewalk over and over again. But the reality is that when it comes to trees, these are all Band-Aids. We are going to need to tackle this head on in the coming years. And I want you to know that when you call my office, and then you call and you call and you call again to try to get a tree pruned around wires, it is not just you. You are not alone. This is an issue throughout the city that we're going to have to deal with. And I'll tell you something else that I think you all know, which is that our streets are another topic that are going to need that type of time and attention and money to get on the right page. On page 7 of this booklet, there is a lovely map of something called the Pavement Condition Ratings, or PCRs, of all the Ward 12 streets. And basically, those red and orange lines, those are streets that are DNF rated, which means they are eligible for repaving. But what we put on there was a little marker, like how much can we actually repave? And the reality is that at our current budget, we simply do not have enough money. We will only repave half of our streets in 20 years at our current method of funding. So when you call and you ask for a street to be repaved, please know that we all want to get it paved, but unfortunately every year we have to only pick a couple. And I feel like I'm going from bad to worse, so I'm sorry, there's gonna be an upward trajectory at some point, but I gotta flip you to the next page to talk about vacant lots. Vacant lots is one of the most significant challenges, especially this time of year, that we have at the city. Right now, the city is responsible for managing over 20,000 vacant lots. And for all the crews we have working sun up to sundown with all the equipment we have, if everything goes right, okay, the current plan is to mow those lots once every 7 weeks. Once every 7 weeks. So that's only 3 or 4 times the entire summer. So all I can say is that the plan isn't good enough. I think we all know that if we were to let our own grass grow for 7 weeks, we'd probably get a citation from the city. And yet we are letting these vacant lots grow for so long because we just simply have not had that investment. It's the same problem as garbage bins, just on this massive scale. We don't have the money to have the crews and equipment, and then we don't have the systems in place. Right now, we sort of send them out based on 292 city subsections, and we have these trim crews that's supposed to do the tree lawns after the tractor has come through, but it's gotten unwieldy. And I think for anybody who lives next to these lots, it's a dignity issue that you take the time to maintain your property, and yet you're being asked to live next to this overgrown lot that's attracting pests and vermin and having all sorts of problems. So the reality is that we're gonna need to fix this. If you're interested, this grass mowing has actually been a hot topic for us this summer. We sent a sort of, you work inside the system and outside the system at my job. Sometimes I'm with the media, I'm on Channel 5 or Channel 19 talking about issues, and sometimes I work inside the system. And grass mowing is a way I've been working inside the system this year. We have, we sent a memo outlining the needs, and my staff member Sarah is holding it up. You can get copies of this. We brought it. It was sort of an in-house deal for a couple of weeks, but we haven't gotten answers yet, and so I want to show you a little bit about how we work on this issue. So I hope you pick up a copy on the way out to learn a little bit about how we advocate on these critical topics from inside City Hall. There's a final topic I want to touch on in terms of basic city services, which is vacant and abandoned properties. This is the perfect bridge topic between, remember those 2 buckets I talked about in the beginning, basic city services and strong neighborhoods. Housing is the link between those two. It always has been and it always will be. Our ability to manage our housing stock and to better manage vacant and abandoned properties is critical to our success and safety as a city. I know that it's sort of fast forwarding through the book, but if you're interested, there is a really interesting map from the vacant property survey that we did in Cleveland. It's a little later in the book, I think on pages 18 and 19, but that might be interesting to listen to as I tell you the next couple of things. So each of these vacant and abandoned homes has their own story. Each one is heartbreaking. They attract crime, they're an eyesore, they drag down home values for hardworking neighbors who maintain their properties. And right now, the system to address them is inadequate. It kind of feels like you're going in a cycle, like you're just spinning. You call over and over and over again and you say, the boards have been torn down, and then the city puts the boards up, and then they're torn down again, and the property never gets fixed. And what we really need to move towards is actual progress on these properties. And I'm here to tell you that we have the best chance that we have had, frankly, in a generation to do this because of a bill that we passed on City Council this year called Residents First. Residents First is a suite of tools to hold out-of-state landlords accountable. And as the bill says, put you, the residents of Cleveland, first. This bill mattered so much to me because of my own story about how I ended up on council. If you'll indulge me, I just wanted to share this. When I was 19, I had rented my first apartment in Chicago, and I noticed that the heat wasn't turning on even as the Chicago winter was coming in. and call after call to my landlord to fix the issue went unanswered. And eventually I called the tenants' rights hotline, and they walked me through writing what turned out to be my very first demand letter. And it said, if you don't fix my heat, I'm not paying my rent. And the next day I delivered the letter just like they instructed me. And the next day I woke up in my bed and my heat was on. I was so warm and toasty. And I just remember lying there like warm for the first time I had been in days, thinking like, this is a superpower. I want to give this power. I want to spend my life giving this power to other people. That passion took me to law school, where I wrote a lot more of those types of demand letters, and also legal aid, where I was representing people facing eviction or homeowners facing foreclosure. And frankly, that job at legal aid, I thought it was my dream job. If you told me in 2016 that I would be speaking here as a local politician, I would have told you I'd lost my way a little bit. But of course, I had something that changed the course of my life. I had a client who changed the course of my life. She was a mom who walked into my office with her daughter, and she said, my daughter was poisoned by lead. The city did an inspection and never told me what happened. Can you help me figure out what's going on? And I thought it would be the easiest case I had all week. I thought it would be one phone call. But instead it turned into a months-long lawsuit against the city of Cleveland, because at the time we were mismanaging hundreds of these cases of lead poisoning all around the city. And realizing how bad things had gotten, how unfair this was to my client, my neighbors, to all of us, that's what put the fire in my belly to run in the first place. And you have to have fire in the belly to want to run for city council, I'll tell you that. And I'm glad to say the city is doing a much better job managing these lead poisoning cases, but we haven't fully addressed the issue. We have this influx of negligent, out-of-state landlords who don't fix up their properties, and it continues to be both a safety issue in our neighborhoods, and it's a continuation of our high lead. It continues to play into our lead poisoning rates, which are still higher here in the city of Cleveland than they are in Flint, Michigan. So this Residents First bill was the type of bill that made me want to get onto city council in the first place. It has the power to be transformational. It sets into place many of the changes that give us our first chance in decades to wrap our arms around our housing crisis. And what does that look like? One, we have inspectors who are case managing these properties, making sure that we're not just caught in that cycle over and over again. Second, we get civil nuisance tickets. That way we can get these landlords' attentions faster, slap them with fines rather than taking months and years to get them into housing court. And third, we have the power to inspect vacant properties that are flipped between these LLCs. I'm proud that with my background as a housing attorney, I was able to lead the way on this bill and help get it passed. And I know for sure my 19-year-old self is damn proud as well. So now our job is to implement it so that we can see real changes. And it's going to be one of the most important tools we have to bring us strong neighborhoods. And like I said at the beginning, strong neighborhoods is the other driving force that is in my mind when I wake up and I get to City Hall every day. And all of us in this room, I mean, we've lived different lives, we come from different backgrounds, but if we closed our eyes and thought about what would make a strong neighborhood, I actually think we would have a pretty similar vision. Strong neighborhoods have good housing, they have open businesses for people to shop at. Strong neighborhoods have nice parks and good rec centers for kids to play at. And of course, they have strong schools, though that's a topic I'm not going to dive into here for too long because City Council does not oversee the CMSD budget. But you should know it's an issue that I'm following closely, and I hope you all follow really closely as well as we head towards the school levy this fall. But first and foremost, if we were to close our eyes and imagine a strong neighborhood, I think we would all agree that the most important quality is that it would be safe. Safety is not just a privilege, it's a fundamental right. Our neighborhood should be sanctuaries where families can thrive, work, and play without fear. And yet, right now, for far too many of us, that is not the case. We need to tackle the root causes of violence in our community, which start from systemic forces like open access to guns, drug addiction, lack of mental health services, and of course, poverty, which is amplified by Cleveland's history of racial inequality. Each of these issues is connected to roles and responsibilities we have on City Council, but also related to state and federal policies. So I hope you pay attention in those jurisdictions as well. But here at home, we need to focus on what we can here at home first and foremost. And as a baseline, we need our Department of Public Safety to have the tools it needs to respond to emergencies. Response times for law enforcement play a pivotal role in that feeling of safety, and I fully support the efforts to increase academy classes so that we have police, fire, and EMS officers on hand to respond to the volume of calls we receive. Being fully staffed is also critical to increase morale within our department so that officers are not mandated to work overtime multiple times a week. However, our efforts cannot stop at a mere reaction to crime. We must proactively prevent violence before it occurs. For the first time, we have a dedicated funding stream within the city for violence prevention programs. $2 million in 2023 that went to grassroots organizations that work here in Ward 12. Groups like God's Vision Foundation, Golden Ciphers, Building Hope in the City are all working long-term to break the cycle of violence. I'm also proud to be known as the council member who amended our code so that the city can begin pursuing what's called care response. Care response means providing mental health support to those in acute mental crisis, diverting nonviolent calls away from law enforcement, and freeing up police to respond where we need them most. Furthermore, we must address the quality of life issues such as noise complaints and reckless driving. As I said before, one of my jobs in this state of the ward is to be honest with you in my assessment of what we're doing well and what we aren't. And I don't think we've quite cracked the code on either of these basic city services, either of these basic quality of life safety issues just yet. I have far too many calls to my office for repeat noise complaints where we cannot even get to the point of a nuisance letter because we cannot get a squad car out there to talk to people and to understand what's actually happening. We have the same general problem with fireworks, which I know are a frustration for CPD and residents alike. And I'm committed to working with our public safety committee to find a path forward, including using better non-police options that should be at hand. It's also reckless driving. Reckless driving is out of control and has been for years, especially since COVID. In 2023, the city of Cleveland issued more than 120,000 traffic tickets, but 10 years later, we issued only 19,000. Our own citizens, we banned the type of camera enforcement that other cities use, and until we get to the point of real enforcement, I'm not sure that we will ever see the results we want, although we continue to try innovative approaches. This summer, the city will be installing 100 speed tables around the city. 100 speed tables in a city the size of Cleveland is certainly not as much as you want, but 8 of those will be coming here to Ward 12. But it is a continued frustration for our office that over and over and over again, what you see with your own eyes are people driving recklessly, running stop signs, endangering kids, and we don't yet have the tools to offer to you to fix this issue. All I can say is that I hear it too. I want my street to be safe as much as I want yours to be, and this is something we're going to have to face head on in the coming years. I do believe that despite the challenges, we can build a safer, more resilient Ward 12 by investing in prevention, fully staffing law enforcement, and enhancing community engagement. I do believe we can move closer to that vision of safety that I know we all have as a shared value. Safety is a foundational building block for everything we want to do, but there is so much more to layer on top of it. I hope you take the time to read through the discussion of master planning. I know, another exciting topic. When I came into office, none of my neighborhoods had a working master plan. And today we are on track for every section of our ward to have clearly organized principles about where we are headed next. I'm particularly excited. I know we have some Brooklyn Center residents in the room. We've created a micro plan for the area around Calgary Park because Calgary Park is getting a $1 million redesign in the coming year, and we now have a cohesive plan for the area we're doing around the park, not just the park itself. And I think that can be a model for all our other neighborhoods for the work we have ahead. But I want to be really clear at the same time. I don't believe in development for development's sake. That is not the goal. I don't want Cleveland to end up feeling like portions of big cities on the coast where longtime residents are priced out because we were building for a future just for wealthy residents to move in. My goal isn't to move wealthy people into Ward 12. My goal is to move wealth into Ward 12. Wealth and prosperity for the people who are already here. And to put it simply, I'm not waiting for downtown to save us, and I'm not waiting for the Browns Stadium to save us. A thriving downtown is critical for any city, but we need to take action now to support community-driven developments in our neighborhoods. The core operating theory for what we're doing across commercial and residential properties in Ward 12 is addressing what's called the housing price gap. This is a term that I am excited to get to explain to you tonight because I feel like it is, once you understand it, it kind of is the key that unlocks what's happening in all of our neighborhoods. It's the basic idea that you cannot get the money out of your house that you invest into it when the housing market is weak. So let's take an example. This isn't a particular resident, it's kind of a composite of a few different types of conversations I've had, but imagine somebody who's waited for years to put a new roof on their home. And the thing that they're waiting for is a bank loan, but they need to put down a certain amount to deposit to get the main loan. They can save and save and save, but the bank is going to have to run their own numbers and make sure that if they loan this person that money to fix the roof, the house is going to be worth more at the end of the day. And what's happening is that our banks are looking at the weak housing markets in the city of Cleveland, and they're denying those loans because of the housing price gap. If you put in $10,000, your home is not worth $10,000 more. Now, I talked at the beginning about the diversity of our neighborhoods, and the reality is that the housing price gap is not as big. It's bigger in some neighborhoods than it is in others. We're the closest to making it go away and flipping the market and making it self-sustaining in our strongest neighborhoods like Tremont and Old Brooklyn. We're the furthest away from doing it in Slavic Village, and probably Brooklyn Center is somewhere right in the middle. But the reality is that this housing price gap is what we need to bridge. We need to get to the point where our housing stock has enough investment in it, that there's enough comps, as they say in the industry, so that when you put that money into your property, the banks know that you can get it out again. And so bridging the gap is exactly what we're trying to do. In Old Brooklyn, that looks like the Memphis and Pearl project, which I'm really excited to have come right down the street here. In Slavic Village, it looks like the Fullerton school site, which we just finished the RFP for. We have a brand new developer for that site. And I'm also, but more than that, we can't just rely on like one big mega project to save us, right? There needs to be investment on our commercial corridors for basic small business. And in Ward 12, we have an incredible opportunity to do this because we have amazing historic corridors with far too many open storefronts. To fix these issues, we need both carrots and sticks, okay? And I am really proud to have delivered for Ward 12 over $1 million in ARPA funding so that we can invest that directly into our storefront businesses here in Ward 12. And so those carrots look like that hundreds of thousands of dollars in ARPA money that we can get into white boxing, which means fixing up a space so that it's brand new and move-in ready for a small business that might not want to make those repairs. It looks like storefront renovation, it looks like street beautification, and we're not just talking about Broadview here, we're talking Broadview, Denison, Pearl. On the east side we have Fleet, Broadway, East 71st. These are all locations where this money can go, and I know that we have him in the room. Niall is in the back, he's waving his hand. We have recently brought him on board as a shared staff member between our Ward 12 CDCs to his only job for the next 2 years is to get this money out into the streets. And normally I don't think, one of my jobs as a politician is not to overpromise and underdeliver. So I don't want to, I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe we can do it. But I want you all to see and feel a difference on our commercial corridors within the next 2 years. And we point to businesses that aren't open now and we say, this is getting done because of that money. This is his third week on the job, so we have a while to go, but my hope is that in the next 2 years, we really have these tangible deliverables on our amazing historic corridors, which we want to bring back to life. But the reality is that we know those carrots aren't going to be enough. We need sticks as well. And that's where Residents First comes in as well. We have far too many people who bought old property on our commercial corridors and kept it empty, hoping that others would invest enough for them to make money in 10 or 20 years. We don't want that to keep happening. If you leave your properties dilapidated, empty, or dangerous, you should know that there's going to be two paths for you. Start working to fix it up, or get penalties and fines and citations. It should cost something to hold these properties empty for years and sometimes decades at a time. We have that same problem at an even larger scale when it comes to residential properties. You can see the results in that citywide property survey that I mentioned at the beginning. We've now gotten to that part of the address. And we know that too many of our residents don't have the money or incentives to invest in their homes right now. So we need to find other ways to get money into people's homes. Focusing on lead-safe repairs is one of the best ways we can do that. And I'm very proud to have our Lead Safe Cleveland Coalition here talking about ways we can get money to fix windows, doors, make repairs on these properties, and just get money into them to start bringing them up to code. Money for home repairs is carrots, but again, for these negligent out-of-state landlords, we're also looking at sticks through the Residents First program. A final way we can bridge this price gap, okay, make our neighborhoods stronger, more resilient, is high quality parks and recreation centers in Ward 12. I'm proud to be bringing a new park in the Slavic Village area to Forest City. We'll be ribbon cutting that new park in just a couple of weeks. And as I mentioned, we have fully redesigned Calgary Park, and we should be breaking ground on that later this year. I've also been a tireless advocate for Stella Walsh, which is the only rec center that we have here within Ward 12's boundaries. Last year we had a huge win when we got the old South High Gymnasium back open. In fact, that is the lovely picture on the front of your booklet, is when we got to open up that gym for the first time. It was a beautiful gym that had been shuttered for more than a decade, and now kids are able to use it every single day. But we're not stopping there. We're also investing in a new weight room, and later this year we are going to be having a state-of-the-art workout facility in our Ward 12 Rec Center. We have plenty of other facilities that need a little TLC. I particularly want to highlight Harmony Park, which is the largest park in Ward 12, which has not seen a recent upgrade. As the city finishes the Parks and Rec Master Plan, I'm continuing to advocate for Harmony Park's position for future investments. And at the same time, also looking at the Morgana baseball field, which really needs a synthetic turf. We haven't quite identified the source of funding for that, but it's something that I'm keeping my eyes on. And again, so much of this is about prioritizing. You know, we have a whole city to fix, and so sometimes we have to name our priorities. And for me, Harmony Park and Morgana are two of them. The last project I want to flag, and one that I know we have advocates for in the room, is the Treadway Creek Trail. That trail connects Harmony Park to Old Brooklyn, but the reality is that the city manages it right now, but the city does not manage very many trails that sort of go interior into the woods, and we just don't have very many tools and resources to do it well. And so the trail has not been maintained the way it should. And so I'm very happy to say that we are well on our way to getting the Metro Parks to take over that trail and maintain it much better so that it will be a commuter, accessible trail that all of us can use. Okay, we have gotten through a lot, and we've made it to the end of the booklet, but there is a final aspect of strong neighborhoods that we haven't gotten to touch on yet. It's not tangible and it's not measurable, and I can't make a fancy page in this report talking about it. And yet it's probably the most important work we have to do. And it's our sense of connectedness, the sense of community that you have with your neighborhood. Do you feel like you and your neighbors are in this together? In a lot of ways, we've lost that in Cleveland, not just here, but around the country in the last 50 years. And I believe that bringing it back is a key ingredient to making Cleveland a place where everybody wants to live. I see it happening at every block club and every meeting, including this one here tonight. Earlier this year, I was particularly moved when I saw tenants in one of my senior buildings come together when their only elevator inside their building was broken. Not just for 1 week, not for 2 weeks, or even 3 or 4 weeks, but 5 weeks. Everybody in that building did something for a neighbor that they had not known before. They brought in a case of water, shared a laundry run. Those residents should never have been put in that position in the first place. But when I joined them for a TV news story to try to shame the landlord into fixing it, and we did, I could tell that something special was happening. Sure enough, once the elevator was fixed, this group of residents who had not really known each other before moved on to the next topic, which was the pitch black parking lot outside their building. Actually on Monday, I introduced a piece of legislation. The city has never regulated the parking lots outside of senior buildings and how brightly they should be lit, which is something that plenty of other cities do. And so we're introducing a little fix in the code to make sure that these buildings and their parking lots are better lit. All these little actions bring us closer together. And what you're doing tonight by attending this meeting, by caring, by showing up, is one of the biggest things you can do to rebuild that sense of connectedness. After we finish tonight, if you haven't already, I hope you say hi to somebody at your table who you haven't met before. You and your neighbors are the key ingredient in making our neighborhood strong and successful. If you already have a block club or you come to a spring cleanup, thank you. If you secretly pick up litter while you're walking your dog in the morning, thank you. You adopt a patch of greenery, keep it free of weeds on the street, thank you. If you're taking care of kids, taking care of parents, or just lead a busy life, I especially want to say thank you to you, because I'm sure that taking the time out of your day to listen and care was its own struggle, and I truly believe that the time you are giving here matters. I believe that each of us finds our own path and our own strengths to show up, to contribute to the work of making our neighborhoods better. But what matters is that in our own ways, we each show up. And for me, I'm showing up as my job. It's what I do every day when I wake up. My work is being on city council and doing my best to leap out of bed every day, make it to city hall, answer your phone calls, or take meetings about an upcoming development plan. And this booklet and this speech is a way to share the results of that work in the past 2.5 years in office. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you. I believe we have a second microphone, and my lovely executive assistant Kathleen is going to be carrying it around to people. We're doing it City Club style, where they hold it up for you. So if anyone has any questions, I would be happy to answer them. You're right in my line of sight. This should be coming out. Oh no.
I'm on enough that I don't need that. I'm really excited about the 311 having a web and app option, but I don't see anything like that running for non-emergency calls.
Yes.
And it says right here, and all of us have experienced, when you make a non-emergency call, you can pretty much expect to wait on hold.
Yep.
By the time you got to talk to someone, the noise is over, or maybe it's still going on, but you're not going to get a response. And so a lot of times you just give up because you're not going to want to spend 15 minutes on hold.
Yeah.
Is there a web option maybe in the future for that?
Great question. I will also add that dispatch has started a rather unfortunate habit of also calling people back at like 3 or 4 in the morning after they've made a noise complaint. No one showed up, and then dispatch calls them back and says, "Is the noise still happening?" This is going to be the garbage bin approach, right? We're going to need to change the systems around this. And the systems that touch safety and dispatch are harder to crack than the city services systems. I absolutely want there to be a way where you can log a noise complaint into a centralized system. First, because the patterns are so important, and second of all, because for basic bread and butter noise complaints, we should have better non-police options. Right now, we are overloading our police officers with so many of these calls that they're functionally not getting to any of them, which is also the problem with fireworks calls, and so we need a better way to triage them. And so a centralized system to do that is absolutely on my mind. But I think it's going to take the whole safety committee of city council moving in that direction, but I completely agree with you that that's where we need to go. Yes.
311 again. 311. They use city calls. We have call graphs and natural investigations and stuff like that are going to the health department, which I think is really stupid. During COVID, the health department redirected all their personnel to COVID, and nobody answered the phone for almost 2 years.
Yes.
And they never even bothered to change the voicemail to tell you that nobody was answering the phone for 2 years. Is there some talk about putting that kind of call into a more responsive department?
Yes. First of all, you should definitely take a copy of that memo that I wrote internal to City Hall with you, because it touches on this exact issue. Up until this year, high grass and weed complaints went to the health department. One of the changes in Residents First is supposed to be that building and housing can now ticket for high grass as well. But I'll tell you honestly, like I will just tell you like it is. At the start of this grass mowing season, nobody knew which direction they were going, and the health department was sending it to building and housing was sending it to the health department, and it was a mess. I think we have it sorted out, but the reality is that until we get some muscle memory about like, you have high grass, you immediately get a ticket. You have high grass, you immediately get a ticket. And we have city crews who will mow lot-occupied homes that have high grass. I don't think we're going to make much progress. And that's one of the sources of my frustration, and partially what that memo is about the lack of planning around both vacant and occupied structures. So the answer is it's going to a different department now, but is a change on paper doing what you want? I don't think so just yet, but you better believe that I think this is a basic dignity issue for the city. It's a basic dignity and safety issue for residents, and something's going to have to change. We have to get better at this.
Got another one for you.
Do you mind if I go? I see a couple other hands, and maybe if we can circle back. I want to make sure, I see someone in the back, and I want to make sure the back doesn't get short shrift.
I'm pretty loud, I can do this. I live on Roanoke Avenue, half of which is yours, and half of which will search, who I haven't seen since he was 20. Now, we have speeders going up and down the street. We've had animals hit, we've had near misses with children. We're trying to get a policeman out there just to sit. We'll make it wage in one day.
Yeah.
Without a problem. That's one. Two, grass. Why don't you have an incentive program to have neighbors cut the lawn? To make more sense.
Yep.
Give them an allowance, make sure it's cut, and that way we wouldn't be taxing the city workers to do a stupid project. Three, your urban forestry is
I don't just...
Roanoke Avenue and other streets with mature, old growth trees and gutters. Anybody here disagree with that? They everything look terrible. These beautiful trees were shady. They made the area look better. And we're the forest city, but your urban forestry department got that.
Yeah.
Some of them lost their leaves are going to die. So, make them stop or get an arborist out there to show them what they're doing and what they're doing wrong.
Yep.
But I'm really angry about speeders because we have a cabinet now.
Yep.
I'm sick of kicking dead animals off the street.
As you should be.
So I know the police, there's not enough police.
Thank you. I really appreciate the question.
I'm used to a former chief of police from a suburb. And he knows there's not enough. But we sit out there on our porch, and I've been here since 1980. And it's gotten worse. They're opening up the doors, they're hanging out the door while driving. We call in, nobody shows up.
Yep. I really appreciate these questions, and I want to tackle them in order. So first of all is the speeding. Sorry, it is actually it's even hard for me to hear a little bit when there's side talk. So the speeding, completely agree with you. Who has seen reckless speeding on their street in the city of Cleveland? Yeah, I don't want to minimize it at all, but I want to give you a sense that this is a shared issue we have across the entire city. And right now the tools we have at our disposal are not enough to fix it. We can only get speed tables, those speed bumps, on a handful of streets, even this summer. And everyone that is getting those speed bumps has met what's called a traffic count request, which is that more than 80% of the cars are going, 6 or 7 miles per hour over the speed limit. And I bet that might be happening on your street, but it takes this traffic count process. So I'm more than happy to talk with Councilman Harsh about that as well. The mowing incentive program, I completely agree with you. Akron does an incredible mow to own program where if you mow a lot that's owned by the city, you are then in line to get it. And right now at the city of Cleveland, you can only get one of these lots unless you want to pay thousands of dollars for the lot. You only get it if it's immediately adjacent to your property. But if we had a mow to own program, maybe we could get people to start maintaining ones that are maybe down the street from their property or to the back of their property. So that's a program from Akron. I know I was actually talking about this earlier this week because of a resident who was denied a side yard application for a lot that she had been mowing because it was to the back of her property rather than to the side of it. Urban forestry, completely agree with you. The only thing I can say to justify it is that the people who planted trees in this city in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s didn't know what they were doing. And they planted beautiful oaks that are going to become these incredible mature trees and other tall breeds of trees right underneath power lines. And then we let those trees become mature, and they're essentially stunted. They're never going to get to be the beautiful trees they should be because they were planted in the wrong spot. And so the best thing we can do is plant better trees and maintain the ones that we have. Even though it's horrible, that Y shape you're talking about, I totally get it. And we planted the wrong trees all over this city, and it's something we have to do a lot better. All right, I want to, yep.
I want to thank you about Treadway Trail. I'm on Big Creek Connects. I want to thank you for all the meetings that I go to, that you end up going to, Calvary Park. You blew my mind when you were at the Harshaw Chemical Radioactive meeting the other night. Wow. I wish everybody was here to know what was going on. And people that have never been to the Ward 12 Club, you're there every month. Thank you. You gave the best presentation about the budget and the money, and I wish you could just go into that $1 million and all the other stuff. You don't have time tonight. If anybody wants a free tree, the Old Brooklyn Development Corporation has a program. There's flyers here. They send out an arborist, whether it's a crabapple, dogwood, whatever. If you live in Old Brooklyn, they plant it, they mulch it, they put a fence around it, but it's not on the tree lawn. The city is responsible for the tree lawn. Old Brooklyn Development Corporation is responsible for these. So if you want a free tree, like if you really love them people, pick up one of these. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, thank you. I just want to be transparent with what he was mentioning. My goal is nonpartisan at the City of Cleveland, and we don't get involved in day-to-day politics, but he's talking about the Ward 12 Democratic Club, which when I'm on my city side, I don't talk about, but if you want to get involved with Democratic Party politics, Rosemary Palmer is in the room, and she can help you, or Greg, to get connected on the partisan side, but we don't, my day-to-day operations are nonpartisan. I see a question in the back. I think maybe, I don't have a watch, so I'm thinking maybe 3 more questions. Does that sound good for people's time? All right.
I'm a resident here in Old Brooklyn, and my question to you is this. I appreciate all the different things that you're saying that you're going to ask. That we're going to find these people, find that person, and do all this. How does the City Council work in conjunction with the judicial system in here so that that can be reinforced? Because we can find whoever we want, do whatever, but the response is, so you'll put me in jail, do whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the issue to me, is that connection. What does City Council do? How often do the 3 branches really communicate?
Yeah, I really appreciate
How can I, as a resident, enforce all them to do that?
Absolutely. And I'll be upfront with you that as the separate branch of government, we're actually not quite supposed to be cross-pollinating like that. I actually take great care to make sure that I don't, intervene or try to direct a case one way or the other. But what I think this really comes down to is the housing court judge. We elect our judges in the city of Cleveland, and the municipal races, actually there were a couple in 2023, we will have at the same time that all the council members and the mayor are up for election in 2025, we will be electing our municipal court judges and our housing court judge at the same time, and I think looking at those races is going to be critical. I completely agree with you that the backlogs at the housing court are frustrating. I cannot tell you how often I beat my head against the wall because we've sent over a search warrant to get inside a vacant property, and that's the step I need to condemn it, and I can't get the search warrant to get the inspector inside, and it should not be delayed like that, but we also have to maintain those separate branches of government, just like those CMSD high school students learned about in their class. Costa, I saw your hand up, but I don't know if you...
So I've been to a bunch of your meetings, nothing like this. I'm so proud to be part of this. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
There are many people from all different walks of life at your meetings, and I love that, and everyone has an opinion. A lot of these opinions can be used to resolve some of these issues. Every single one of these 20,000 lots has an adjacent responsible neighbor. What if you just gift the lot to the responsible neighbor, have them cut the lawn, tag $100 on their tax bill, now you're creating $2 million in revenue and a responsible neighbor with a more valuable piece of property, which brings the property value of the whole neighborhood up.
Yep. I love that. So let me tell you exactly what we're doing on that front. It's not every one of these lots that has a responsible neighbor, but a lot of them do. And for the first time, we kind of, with this new administration, we're a little more tech savvy, I would say. There's a little bit more interest in data and technology, and a way that we're using that to our advantage is we essentially set criteria to try to find side yards that should go to the adjacent homeowner, because the adjacent homeowner lives in their home, is up on their taxes, and doesn't have any housing court citations. And rather than going lot by lot by lot as an individual, we almost ran it like a piece of computer code. And we got the suggested list of side yards. I got it like a month ago, and we're experimenting with it on the ground. We're seeing if the data part of it holds up, but if it does, we're going to send out solicitation letters to those people and say, we're going to give you this lot. We'll give you this lot, and we want you to take it and sort of get that engine going. It's not yet at the point where we force them to take it, because some people don't want those lots, but I have like a list in my hand of the first time we've ever used data to try to analyze which of our vacant lots could have responsible owners next door to take care of them. All right, one last question in the back.
Thank you. Wow, that was a lot of questions. I think first and foremost, thank you so much for your leadership and everything you've done in our ward. I think it's a breath of fresh air and just a testimony to all the hard work you do. I think knowing that and looking forward, a little bit concerned around the redistricting process that's coming forward for the whole city of Cleveland. And I think in terms of question, it would be, what should we be expecting? How do we, as residents, have a voice in that process? And then secondly, to not lose all this momentum, because none of this work is going to be done in all these years. How can we be supportive to you in that process?
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So first of all, I want to be really clear. It would be the honor of my life to get to serve Ward 12 again in whatever form. I absolutely want to continue this work because it's not done and it won't be done in 4 years. So I absolutely want the chance to run again. But as you alluded to, we are going from 17 wards as a city to 15 wards. And I know I have a lot of residents from Brooklyn Center in this room who might remember that the last time this pony show came around, you guys were cut out of a different district, basically sort of as political gerrymandering, and you ended up in a district that you hadn't expected. And so I want to share with you everything that I know about the process, and I'll tell you a little bit about what to expect. So the council president has secured a sort of independent researcher. There's sort of a combination of CSU and a consulting group to try to redraw us from 17 wards to 15 wards. And his request, as said out loud, is to try to maintain natural boundaries. So for instance, I do not have the whole part of any of my neighborhoods. All of my neighborhoods are divided up among different wards. And all of my neighborhoods have different council members serving them along different lines. And I would absolutely agree that a #1 priority should be making sure that neighborhoods that live and play together and work together should stay together in the same wards. That is the first and foremost. And I have no interest in changing that for my own political ends by any stretch. You all deserve to be represented holistically in the whole neighborhoods. But that being said, there are certain restrictions, like Old Brooklyn cannot be one ward all itself because Old Brooklyn is too large. Even when we go to 15, it's going to have to be divvied up some way, and about a third of it's going to have to go to another ward. And which ward it goes to is a little hard because Old Brooklyn borders Parma, and then we have Slavic Village, which goes down to Cuyahoga Heights. So all that is to say is that every single thing I know is the people redrawing it have been secured. The goal for council is to have it finalized by shortly after November elections, which gives us about a year with the new maps before we are up. And I'm gonna fight like hell to make sure that you all are represented by somebody who will fight like you, fight for you, and I hope it's me. I think I want to be really respectful of people's time on a busy week night. Truly, thank you so much for coming out. I would be sticking around. Every one of these tables, people are sticking around. Thank you. My heart is so full, and I'm so grateful for all of you for turning out tonight. Have a great evening.